Okay, everyone, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and start this recording. So first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming out, taking the time out of your Friday to attend our July housing hangout. I am Atigre Farmer. I am a program coordinator for the health impact team here at the Center for Housing and Community Studies. I have been a part of the health impact team for the past 4 years, as well as other other projects. And what we're going to do is our topic today is going to be on home rehabilitation services, as well as the healthy homes aspects and some things you can gain from these programs. A reminder that this hangout will be recorded. It'll be posted on our website and our Facebook and other socials. Real quick, I'm going to introduce Ken in a little bit. So our next housing hangout will take place August 6th. I'm going to post the Go link in the chat, and I'm going to let Ken talk a little bit about what's going to take place at our next housing hangout, so you can RSVP and register.
Thank you, Tisha. Hi, everyone. I'm Ken Gruber. I work at the center. I'm a program evaluator for the center, and I've been with the center for about a year and a half now. But I've done some work with housing and asthma, which is the next topic on next month. So what we're going to do next month is talk about why housing issues are related to the incidence and prevalence of asthma, and we're going to talk about it from a couple of different perspectives. From a health perspective, from a housing perspective, from an environmental perspective. So hopefully you all will see some connections of today's talk with next month's talk. So I hope you will join us next month when we talk about it. And we want to kind of continue this series, if you will, of the connection of housing with health, because as you all know, it's a big issue, and slowly but surely the health system is finally starting to recognize the importance of health, of safe housing and fair housing to good health. So I look forward to talking with you all next month.
Thank you, Ken. And I hope you all can come and register. I posted the link in the chat. It will take you directly to this Zoom link now. So please wait until the Zoom is over to register. Go ahead and copy and paste that. As well as I'd also like to invite you guys to our next community workday taking place September 18th. And this is a community event that our center hosts, and we clean up the creek located in the Cottage Garden neighborhood, as well as offer some education around creek cleanup and stormwater and streams. We will also have food, and we also have a little bit of space there for networking and just a little social gathering time to kind of come around and talk about environmental justice in that area. So I'd like to also go ahead and introduce our speakers. I'm going to introduce them each all together, and then I will turn it over to Nisha Graves after a short announcement about the questions. So we have 6 speakers today, and we'll start off with Nisha Graves, who is the Community Outreach and Education Manager for the UNC Chapel Hill Institute for the Environment's Center for Public Engagement with Science. And she'll be talking about the healthy homes aspect and impact of lead and weatherization. And then we'll have Gene Brown, the Executive Director of Community Housing Solutions, who will talk about home repair services and what his organization offers. And then we'll turn it over to Sonia Randolph and Melissa Burton at the Community Improvement Division at the city, who will speak on some details about the Lead Safe Housing Program. And then last but not least, we'll have the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, our speakers Drew Corbett and Doug Laughlin, who will talk about the programs that PTRC offers in relation to weatherization. So I'm just going to ask that if you have any questions, please post them in the chat as well as address the speaker so we can direct them. At the end of all the presentations, we'll open the floor up for discussion and questions when all the presenters have gone. And we'll discuss and ask those questions. So if you could hold your questions to the end or just post them in the chat, and we can do that way. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Nisha Graves.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation to present. I really appreciate this opportunity. It's good to see Atigre and Ken and others that I know with the UNC program and in the general Greensboro area. So it's great to see everybody. Hopefully soon we'll all be able to see each other in person in various meetings. So as she said, I'm an environmental health outreach manager in our program at UNC Chapel Hill, and our team translates the research that's done on various environmental health issues. And in a nutshell, that's how I describe it. We translate the research and put it into presentations like this one, educational materials, videos, websites, a number of different tools that people can use to learn about the environmental health research that's done, not just at UNC, but at federal health agencies and other programs like ours throughout the country, and to help people make decisions about how to improve their health, how to change the environment to improve their health. And so I appreciate opportunities like this to present. When it comes to healthy homes, there are a number of different principles to healthy homes. And one thing I forgot to put on here was the slide that sort of represents 5 key components that our team addresses, which are lead poisoning, indoor air quality, pest and pest management and pesticides, monitoring and maintaining your home and the systems in your home, and then moisture and mold. So I will talk largely about lead and how weatherization can impact health effects related to indoor air quality. And hopefully it'll generate some good thinking and questions and ideas for people about their own homes. I will say not only do I work for the Institute for the Environment, but we also work with a program in the School of Public Health at UNC, the Center for Environmental Health and Susceptibility. So we do this work for a couple of different programs. One of my colleagues who works most closely with me in developing and presenting these trainings and materials is Megan Rogers. And I'll just jump right in talking about lead. So why are we most concerned about children, young children? And forgive me for those of you who already know about healthy homes and know about lead and who it impacts. I'm going to present this as if I'm talking to a group that doesn't know scratch about lead. So that's how I'll talk about it. We are most concerned about children under the age of 6. That is the focus when we're talking about lead poisoning, in addition to pregnant women. And you'll see why in a couple of minutes. But the left side of this slide gives you some thoughts about why we're worried about little kids and lead exposure. Kids eat, drink, and breathe more than we do. So if we're exposed to lead as adults, kids, because their bodies are still developing, because they're eating and breathing and drinking pound for pound more than we do, we're concerned about how what we call the dose or the amount of exposure they're getting can impact their systems. So what I'm trying to say is, even though let's say a little kid and I are both exposed to the same amount of lead, his or her exposure is going to be more detrimental than it will be to mine, because they're eating, drinking, and putting more in their systems pound for pound than I and other adults do. I call them the little thumb suckers. Kids under 6, I don't know about you all, but these were the 2 fingers I sucked until I was 6 years old. And so they put their hands in their mouths, and we take for granted that it just takes a small amount of lead dust, like the dust that this child might be exposed to in this dirt right now. It just takes a small amount for a child to be exposed, even by sucking their thumbs or putting their hands in their mouths. Kids play and move close to the ground, like you see in this image, and lead-based paint that may be in a home can get into the ground near the home, and then their bodies are rapidly developing. And then children, and this is probably even more so in the past 18 months, but kids spend up to 90% of their time indoors, and the home is still, homes built before 1978 are still the key reason why children are exposed to lead in this state and in this country. Kids are more likely to have nutritional deficiencies. The body is fooled into believing that if it's absorbing lead, it's absorbing a nutrient, and we know that's not the case. There is no safe level, there's nothing safe about lead being consumed in the body. But if a child is already deficient in iron and calcium, his body is fooled into thinking that metal that it's absorbing is a nutrient. Therefore, when they lack real nutrients like iron and calcium, their bodies tend to absorb more of what's not healthy for them, meaning the lead. Their gut also absorbs differently. When it comes to the amount of lead absorbed in their gut, for the adult, it's about 10% when we're exposed to lead that's absorbed in our guts. But for kids, it's 50% of what they are consuming. We like this image to sort of show people exactly what happens depending upon the amount of lead that shows up in a child's blood. First and foremost, the only way to know for sure if a child has been exposed to lead is a blood test. And there, like I said earlier, there's no safe level of lead in the system to the body at all. And if you look at this image, when a child is getting a blood lead test, they are getting a look at the amount of lead per amount of blood in their system. And so it's measured in micrograms per deciliter. And this image from left to right shows how an increase in the micrograms per deciliter can cause a child and an adult to have worsening health effects. So in this case, even as small as 5 micrograms per deciliter and less, it can affect a child's IQ levels, their behavior in school, their academic abilities, their ability to concentrate. Then as you see it getting, the number getting larger, it delays puberty. It affects their growth, bone and muscle growth, their hearing. And when hearing is impacted, for children under 6, that means speech can be impacted. An increase of hypertension in adulthood. So let's say you have an adult who is exposed over a long period of time since childhood, or over a long period of time because of his or her line of work. Hypertension can be a factor. Then it really gets quite severe. Brain damage, kidney damage, soft tissue damage, and anemia, and then comas, convulsions, death, even higher. I will say For those of you who wonder about the medical treatment of lead, around 45 micrograms per deciliter is when a medical professional, a physician, will likely recommend chelation or may recommend chelation. If a child is confirmed, meaning they've had 2 blood lead tests that show them having 45 or above. So that can range from oral medication to hospitalization, just depending upon how severe it is. Lead poisoning is a brain injury. And it, you know, that sort of hits home when you think about decreased IQ levels, behavior levels, growing. It's not hard to believe that this is a brain injury. And much of the damage, almost all of the damage done from lead poisoning is irreversible. I don't know if anyone wants to put this in the chat and Atigre can look at it, but does anyone know at what age do we start to recommend having a kid get their blood lead test, their first blood lead test? All right, well, we don't have any takers, so I'll just say it, it's 1 and 2 years old. And if you encounter or if you have children who are 2 or older and have not been tested, don't let this deter you. You still want to get them tested, certainly if they're under the age of 6. But 1 and 2 are the ages at which we really recommend starting to get that child, or at the very least, getting the child tested at those 2 ages. Because remember what I said about the thumb suckers. They're crawling, they're playing. It gets even worse when they're 2 because then they're really running around. So you really want to have a child tested at 1 and 2 years old. That is a recommendation, but physicians are required, if they have children under their care who are Medicaid recipients, they have to test children at 1 and 2 years old. So I always tell parents, for those of you who are parents on this call, don't just feel, you know, in the back of your mind, oh, my doctor is going to take care of it. Do not trust that. You need to make sure your child's physician is testing your child, especially because for Medicaid children, it is required. And you see here, even if they're beyond 2 years old, we encourage people to get your children tested. And someone else will talk about services in a little bit, but I just wanted to hit home with that. In North Carolina, across a 12-year period between 2005 and 2017, we tested 50 to 60% of children at 1 year old. But for some reason, it dropped for the 2-year-olds and only 30 to 40% are tested. So we really need to make sure we maintain getting kids tested at 1 and 2. Pregnant women are the other category, the other people that we're concerned about in terms of who is at higher risk of lead exposure and the dangers of lead exposure. So you see from this slide, lead can be stored in the bones of a pregnant woman and then it moves into the bloodstream. When that happens, it can cross the placenta, and studies have found that lead can enter the baby's brain, the fetal brain. So children can be born with lead exposure. The results can be devastating, everything from low birth weight to a miscarriage, preterm births for the mother, high blood pressure. So there are a number of different health effects that can be really detrimental to a woman who is pregnant and has lead exposure. Preeclampsia. So there are a number of different health impacts. What makes pregnant women susceptible, or what puts pregnant women at this higher risk? There are a number of different things that we pay attention to for pregnant women and children. But I want to kind of hone in on a few things that are really important. And I think for those of you in Greensboro or in the Guilford County Triad area, that area of the state has a significant number of populations who are immigrating to the US from other countries. So it's important to know that some native countries have high levels of lead, like Mexico, China, other Asian countries. We found that in some ways, the United States is poses less of a threat of exposure to lead for different reasons, and I'll talk about them in a second. But pregnant women from certain countries, certain less developed countries, may be more exposed to lead because lead is used more in those countries. It can depend on the job, and that's true for, pregnant women and for adults. It can depend, and you'll see images in a moment about the different types of jobs that expose them to lead. Older housing, pre-1978, that is the key age of housing. If a person is living in pre-1978 housing, there is the very high chance that they are exposed to lead in the lead-based paint. Pica or pica is, and it can be pronounced both ways, it is the consumption of non-eating food, or non-food items, I should say, like clay, pottery, soil. So the body is literally craving something. And that's how pregnant women, and this is a worldwide phenomenon, so it's not just in the United States, it's all over the world where women can have this condition. And then lead that's consumed over a lifetime. So whether it's their housing, whether it's their job, for whatever reason, they may have accumulated a lot of lead in their system over a long time. I will say there are free blood lead tests. I believe that's true for the Guilford County Health Department. It is for many health departments throughout the state. And more importantly, the state lab now will analyze the blood lead test of pregnant women who get their services through the health department. If a pregnant woman, just like a kid under the age of 6, if a pregnant woman tests at 5 micrograms per deciliter or higher, she is entitled to, it's officially called an investigation, but it's really an inspection of their home or whatever might be causing her to be exposed to lead. I'm just going to go through this really briefly, these sources of lead exposure. Lead-based paint is still the #1 reason why people all over the country are exposed to lead. For people who don't know if they're looking at lead-based paint, that image on the bottom left, the image on the top right, that peeling, we call it alligator skin in our office. That alligator skin look is a way to know if you may be exposed or if there's lead-based paint in that home. The older a home is, the more likely it has lead in it. But I can tell you now, an environmental health specialist who is conducting a lead investigation because a kid may be poisoned, they are going to look at any property built before 1978 as a potential source of exposure. Here are some other sources of exposure. It could be a parent's job that exposes them to lead. There's a lot of, for those of you in the Piedmont, there's been lead exposure through battery manufacturing in the Triad area. And then people who don't properly work around lead-based paint, like the 2 men in the bottom right image, car repair, welding, So people who are doing that kind of work, they are working with products that are made from lead. And unlike lead-based paint, unlike lead-based residential paint that's on a home built before 1978, these people may be working with products that are made to this day with lead. And there's no, there's nothing like a rule or a law that prevents the use of those products like we have with lead-based household paint. Lead in drinking water. There are a number of different ways that lead can get into the drinking water. And we always tell people, if you live on well water, one way to know for sure is to contact the health department and get your water tested if you're on well water. For those of you on city water, your water should be getting tested and you should be notified if there's water in your city water anyway. But for people on well water, it's up to them to get their water tested. Food and spices, flavorings. I already sent these slides to Atigre. I'll be happy to send a PDF that people can use to access our resources library and see if some of the spices that you use or that you frequently use have been known to have lead in them. But sometimes it can be the product that is grown in a certain field in another country may be the source of exposure in food and spices. The glaze on pottery, especially if people are eating or boiling or serving warm food or cooking in that item. The warmer or the more acidic something may be, like vinegar or orange juice, the more the lead will leach into the product. Here are some other common items. Toy jewelry, either the metal, the plastic, or the paint could have lead on it, lead in it. Keys, Chatham County Health Department noticed a problem with children gnawing on keys. Some fishing weights and bullets are almost 100% lead. Mini blinds, plastic and vinyl mini blinds, especially those made before 1996, could potentially be a source of lead exposure. Then home remedies. These are all home remedies that people can consume. Everything from a child having the upset stomach or the flu to mom trying to deal with her morning sickness. There are different reasons why people use home remedies from their home countries. And these are from Asian countries, from South American and Middle American countries. So there are different sources of lead exposure in remedies where people thought they were using and consuming something for their health, but they've actually been found to have quite a bit of lead in them. And so we always talk to people about not using remedies from their home countries, especially these that could potentially have high levels of lead in them. Here are some additional sources that are related to people's culture. And we, certainly respect people's culture, but the reality is some of these items that people use for worshiping or for good luck or for good fortune tend to have high levels of lead in them. And I just recently learned in the past couple of years that some people, when they are wearing kohl and kajal around their eyes or on their faces, they may wear it for days at a time before washing it off. So there's really concern about the exposure to certain cultural items and trying to help families figure out another way to continue their cultural practice without exposure to kids. All right, I don't know where I am on time. I'm gonna assume Atigre will stop me when I need to stop. but I think I can do this, Atigre, in the next 5 minutes or so.
Okay, I was about to say you have about 5 minutes left.
All right, I'm gonna go quickly then. And some of this may overlap with what Ken has asked me to talk about next month. So that's fine that I have to go a little quicker. So I will say, when we're talking about weatherization, some of the issues we address involve how you maintain and monitor your home. So how the indoor air quality is improved or made as healthy as possible is one thing we really pay attention to when dealing with maintaining and monitoring your home. And some of that will overlap with people who are addressing weatherization. One example is carbon monoxide. So it is known, unfortunately, has a really tough nickname called the silent killer, because it has no taste, smell, or color to it. So people don't know they are exposed to it. People experience everything from headaches to nausea, unconsciousness, comas, and even worse. People who are at high risk are people who already have health conditions like asthma or heart conditions, small kids, elderly women, elderly people. And then carbon monoxide, one of the reasons why weatherization is important is making sure you know how your heating system is working, how the gas appliances in your home are operating, because that is the main way that people are exposed to carbon monoxide. And here's a list of items, especially if there's no ventilation in your home. This is why carbon monoxide is so dangerous. When it comes to other health ailments involving indoor air quality, asthma and lung health is another issue. At the top right corner, that's a healthy airway inside a person's lungs. So their breathing they can easily breathe with open, clear airways. But for a person with asthma, especially if they're exposed to poor indoor air quality, the bottom right image shows an airway that's full of mucus. We all have mucus to fight disease, but for people like myself with asthma, there's too much mucus. The airways are constricted by the muscles. They are inflamed and thickened and red. So it makes it hard for air to get in and out when we're breathing. Mold and moisture around a home tend to be an air trigger for people with asthma. And I want to point out a couple of things that are related to weatherization. So you have to think about the regular way that water gets into a home or moisture gets into a home, like cooking and showering, boiling water, and the water vapor near our homes. This is everyday life. But then there are things that have to be fixed around the home. And you can see like the window condensation, leaky roofs. There are things that can cause moisture to build up in a home because something needs to be repaired. Other things that impact indoor air quality and are related to weatherization are your HVAC system and making sure it's properly working. That top left image shows a person who clearly went at least a year without changing their filter in their HVAC system. Another thing is making sure in your bathrooms and in your kitchens that the exhaust fan is working, like that arrow is pointing to in that woman's kitchen. And I'll just show really quickly, resources that we share with people are our North Carolina Healthy Homes website. And if you look here, the boxes in bold red, they show different, along that blue line, they show the different healthy homes issues that we address in our workshops, in our handouts we provide, and other resources. Here are some fact sheets on some of the topics I talked about earlier. Others here in the bottom left, there's a video, that man with the the face like that. He's smelling mold and mildew. We produce videos that help educate people about different issues. And so in a nutshell, I kind of did that last part really quickly. I'm sure there are others who will talk about weatherization in even more detail, but I'm open to questions now, or if Atigre prefers later, I'll certainly answer questions later. And here's our contact information. We have quarterly meetings of the Lead and Healthy Homes Task Force meeting that you're welcome to join. And my colleague Megan Rogers is the one who manages that listserv and those meetings.
Thank you, Nisha. There was one question, I believe, about testing from Michael. So for testing, is it all children at 2 years old or just those in pre-1978 houses and apartments?
No, it is a universal recommendation. All children at 1 and 2 are recommended to get a blood lead test at 1 and at 2 years old. But with Medicaid, that is the group that is required to be tested. And I'm careful when I say required, because when I say required, I mean it's on the doctor to make sure he is testing that child. But unfortunately, parents of children on Medicaid are going to have to also ask and keep up with the physician testing the child.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Jean now at Community Housing Solutions.
Thank you. Anisha, thanks for your presentation. Many of our staff have gone through a Healthy Homes orientation and education program. As much as about 12 or 13 years ago, Beth McKee-Huger introduced us to that program and kind of set us up, I think, for the rest of the presenters for that, because a lot of the things I'm going to comment on will be the types of home repairs that our organization does in Greensboro and Guilford County, throughout Guilford County, and many of them have an impact on healthcare. And just for a little bit of background for folks on the call here that I may not know, I spent 22 years in the healthcare payer side, I'll call it that. I worked with companies like United Healthcare and Travelers, and worked on the healthcare payer side. And then I've been 13 years now in housing. And what's really, really exciting is the healthcare community is beginning to recognize the impact, and has been for probably the last 5 years. When I first started 13 years ago, I had a number of folks in the healthcare field that I would talk to about how housing impacts healthcare. And they'd say, you guys do great work, but we're funding other specific medical direct initiatives. But it's really been neat, even as much, and many of you are probably familiar with the Medicare initiative to allow healthcare payers to pay for certain what they call social determinants of health, of which housing is one of those 4. So it's an exciting time, and I'm actually going to share a little bit of a partnership that we have with Cone Health, working with older adults, a little bit in my presentation. Just a little bit of background about Community Housing Solutions for those that may not be familiar with us as a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit organization that's been in existence for about 15 years. And that's okay. I was going to share that in a second. I don't know if I can.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Stop and then I'll share it. Yeah. We've been in existence for about 15 years, but we've been very intentional with the 3 words that identify our organization. Community is really, really important. And the way our organization reflects that is we are a community housing development organization certified by HUD or ACHODO. And what that means, one of the things that it means is that 1/3 of our board of directors are made up of representatives from low-income communities. They either need to be a neighborhood leader from a low-income neighborhood, they either need to be low-income themselves or live in a low-income neighborhood. And so it really makes for a dynamic board where we're really focused on addressing issues most pressing to the folks that we serve. And then we also engage volunteers with our work, with our staff. Housing, we are completely focused on home ownership. the repairs and the different programs we offer that I'll share in just a minute, those are for folks that own their home. There may be renters obviously may need repairs or different issues, but that is not something we address. So we work completely with home ownership. And one of the reasons why we do that is that home ownership is so critical to neighborhoods in terms of the stability. The Enterprise organization did a study many years ago, it's probably 15, 20 years ago, and they tied many factors of a stable neighborhood with the percentage of home ownership, meaning that the higher rate of home ownership in a neighborhood, north of 50%, the lower rates of crime, prostitution, and drugs. And so the stability in the neighborhood can really be reflected in the percentage of home ownership. And so we are focused on trying to preserve homes for folks that can't physically or financially do the work themselves through our home repair program with that. And then the other thing is many of the folks that we serve, which they also must be low income on a limited income that we serve, is many times their home is their greatest asset. We may not always think of our home as wealth, but to many folks that we serve, that is very true. And they take a lot of pride in that, and they take that wealth as something that they want to pass down to future generations when they pass, because we work with a lot of older adults. So those are two real reasons why we think it's really important to help folks preserve that asset that may not be able to do it financially or physically themselves, the repair work. And then the fact that we really feel like we're helping to preserve assets for families and stabilize the neighborhoods. So with that, let me share my screen. Here we go. And put it here. I'll share one funny thing. Our construction staff joke at me because our logo has a saw and a hammer. And though we do use hammers, they said, Gene, we don't use those saws anymore. We use power tools. But I said, well, it didn't show as well with our logo. We changed our name about 6 or 7 years ago from Housing Greensboro to Community Housing Solutions as we expanded outside of Greensboro and began to serve all of Guilford County. But a little bit about who we are. I like to say that we're a nonprofit general contractor. So yes, we are a nonprofit that has a focus on serving Guilford County with home repairs, but half of our staff, 6 of our 13 employees are construction staff that do the work themselves or work with volunteers to lead the work. So we're a nonprofit general contractor. 2 of our staff are licensed general contractors. All of them are certified for the repair, renovate, and paint certified, lead safe, repair, renovate, and paint. We are also certified aging in place specialists. If you've heard the acronym CAPS, C-A-P-S, if you're working in an older adult's home that may have some accessibility modifications, there's a right way and a wrong way to install grab bars, to build a ramp. You can actually make the house more dangerous for falls for somebody that needs accessibility modifications. So I would encourage you, whether you're paying for it or you're advising someone, that for them to check if the folks that they're contracting with are CAPS certified. We also have 2 of our staff trained on energy efficiency repairs, because you'll see a lot of times we get into repairs and we will do some energy efficiency work at the same time. And our staff has more than 80 years of experience. We actually have 2 programs that we offer. I'm only going to talk about one today, but our home repair program is really the majority of the work that we do. We serve about 150 clients a year in Guilford County, helping to repair their homes, investing about $1 million a year in preserving home ownership. They have to own and occupy their home and have an income below 80%, which is what HUD determines as low income. And then we also have a home buyer program where we either renovate existing homes that we purchase, could be a foreclosure or something like that, and renovate, or buying a vacant lot and building a new home. So as an example, in East Greensboro, where the tornado hit 3 years ago, there are a number of vacant lots where homes were taken down. And we are currently in the middle of building out, along with other nonprofits, homes in East Greensboro. So we have a home buyer program where we build anywhere from 8 to 10 homes a year in both Greensboro and in High Point. So just a little bit, if you're not familiar with who we are, that I wanted to share a little bit of that. So I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'm just going to share a little bit about our home repair program. And I do want to say, where I talked about us being community focused, when our home repair manager goes out to assess a home, or when our client services person receives the phone call, we make notes about why they're calling us. And then our home repair manager that goes out, the first thing he will do is find out exactly what they called us about, because we want to really be focused on what their immediate need is. And then once we do that, the other thing we do is we almost do like a mini home assessment, where we will go in the crawl space, we will go in the attic, we will check around the whole house, because many times, especially where 75% of the people we serve are elderly or disabled, they may know on the surface when something's not working, but they may not have the ability to really dive deeper into it and really get at the root cause. So we not only try to address the needs of the homeowner for repair, we also try to identify other needs. And we kind of categorize them in 3 different areas. We call it warmer, drier, and safer. So let me give you an example, and then I'll comment on the picture. So warmer, we do a lot of repairs on the outside of the house. If you know this or not, you may know this, but your homeowner's insurance, whoever your carrier is, they typically will drive by your house every now and then to check the outside of your house. We get a number of homeowners that will call us saying, hey, my homeowner's insurance is going to cancel if I don't get X, Y, or Z repaired on the outside of my house. And we're not talking about cosmetic stuff. We're talking about soffit or fascia that's rotting, or exposed siding, broken windows, those types of things, roof repairs. So we do a lot of external home repairs, and we try to be efficient with our work. So this particular picture, we had some windows and some siding that was rotting on this house, and we took part of the siding down, and we realized there was no insulation or any type of foam board underneath that. And so while we have the project open and we're repairing it, we may also do different types of energy efficiency work to help seal the house, to help in that capacity. We also do a number of floor and ceiling repairs, where literally, like, there's a home right now, it's actually a mobile home right now that we just built an access ramp for, that they have literally 2 holes through the floor that literally they just have carpet over. So we do a lot of flooring repairs. We do a lot of ceiling repairs if there's damage from water damage. And that addresses their immediate needs, but we're also able to see, is there insulation that's needed to be put in the attic, or is there things underneath the flooring? And while we have that repair open, it's a lot easier to access and get that done. So that's a little bit about making the homes warmer from that end. And some neat things, we're actually partnering right now with North Carolina A&T University to do some, they have some funding that they received from the state to do some weatherization and some other potential work with solar panels. And so we're helping to refer some clients to them that may be able to help in that area as well. The middle thing, the number 1 cause of repairs for when people call us is water damage. So leaking roofs, faulty plumbing, or faulty drainage around the outside of the house that's causing water to get in either to the crawl space, into the attic, and into the house. As Nisha had talked about, I think that's one of the healthy homes factors. Water can lead to respiratory issues, and a number of, Ken Grouper mentioned talking about asthma. We have a number of folks that will call us that have had water damage or have mold and mildew issues, and we are able to remediate and address that. So the healthcare issues with water damage are really extensive, besides being slippery and dangerous. A lot of people don't realize the most dangerous room in your house is your bathroom. The most dangerous room in your house is your bathroom. And it is because there's hard surfaces and there's water and moisture and dampness all over the place. And so besides issues of health issues from potential respiratory issues, there's also issues for falls as well. This particular picture that you're looking at, believe it or not, that was a kitchen in High Point. It looks beautiful now, but they had, it was an elderly gentleman trying to care for his mom. I think he was like in his late 60s, 70s, and his mom was in her 90s. And they both had major mobility issues. And we did a major demo. We had some skilled volunteers that helped us with our staff to redo. That was actually their sink and cabinet area that got redone, as well as the flooring. And that's one of the major, that's kind of what I would call a major type repair we did, but that was in a kitchen. But we do a lot of kitchen and bathroom repairs. And then, as I mentioned, we do a lot of roofs each year, either with volunteers when the temperatures are cooler or with contractors that we have. And then the final area of safer, we will do repairs and try to remediate if they have pests, such as holes that may allow, rats or other pests to get in the house. We will do some, if they have cockroaches and that kind of thing, we'll do some pest remediation from a safer perspective. But the majority of the repairs, because we work with so many older adults and disabled individuals, we do a lot of accessibility modifications. And this picture right here is for this older couple in High Point, where we built an access ramp. And Paul in the front, standing in front of them, is one of our staff members that led volunteers from this group to build the ramp for them. So we do ramps and a number of other accessibility modifications that I'll share in a little bit more depth with the next couple of slides. So what I wanted to talk about is a special program that we just relaunched about six or 8 months ago that we tested a few years ago. The program is called Aging Gracefully, or Aging Gracefully in Place was the name of the demonstration project that we did. But back in 2018 and 19, we were chosen as one of 4 sites across the country to be a demonstration site for a national program that was developed by Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. And they developed it and tested it in Baltimore. And they wanted to, the National Center for Healthy Housing out of Washington, D.C. wanted to have a couple of sites and different sites across the country test the program. We were one. There was one in Scranton, Pennsylvania, or no, Wilkesboro, Pennsylvania, one in Burlington, Vermont, and San Diego, California. And highly successful for our site. We were a little bit unique in the sense that we were a construction nonprofit leading the demonstration project. The other sites were led by some different models. And then the other thing is we were tied with Cone Health and Triad Healthcare Network, which is a subsidiary of Cone and is an accountable care organization or an ACO, and where they already do home visits to older adults. So it was a really great partnership. And it was so successful, we have now launched it as a full program with the support of Cone and Community Housing Solutions for older adults that qualify for our program. And I like to say it's built on a couple of principles. All of us, as we get older, would rather live in our home or age in place as we get older. We really don't want to go to a nursing home. We'd rather not if we could stay in our homes. So this program is all about allowing people to live safely and be empowered living in their own homes. The other principle is, you think of a 3-legged stool or rope that has 3 strands woven together. You know, when you tackle a problem collaboratively with more than one organization, you're able to really have a much better outcome. And so we partner with Cone Health so that we have every client gets assigned an occupational therapist, a registered nurse, and then our staff does the accessibility modifications. And so the occupational therapist and the nurse, they evaluate up front what mobility issues they might have, and their client-driven goals. What does the client, the older adult, really want to do? And then the nurse identifies health complications that might be going on or things we need to be aware of. And the occupational therapist and the nurse write up a scope of work, almost like a prescription, but instead of for a medical prescription, it's filled by us as a construction general contractor to go in and do a certain set of accessibility modifications. And in addition to the accessibility modifications, there also can be durable medical and other assistive equipment, such as transfer benches or grab bar or reacher bars or different things like that. So we work collaboratively with Cone Health, and some of the types of things, we install grab bars, ADA or universal design toilets, which are higher toilets that make it easier to get on and off, handheld shower heads, hand railings, broken flooring, removing carpet, we don't have a lot of folks that have stairways to a second floor, but if they had, say, a split level, double banisters on the interior stairs, access ramps, lighting, lever door handles, those types of things. Here's a homeowner we did in January, and sometimes the things are really simple. On average, we're spending about $3,000 for an intervention of accessibility modifications, but there's some really, really simple things. This person just needed some grab bars. You think of grab bars in the bathroom. These are grab bars for an entryway into a porch that had a little step up. And she said, man, I'm trying to open the door and get in. Sometimes I'm at risk of pinching my fingers. And so we just put the OT recommended these grab bars. We put, one of her biggest complaints was getting in and out of chairs and couches. We put a piece of plywood underneath the couch thing and it made it more stable so she didn't sink in. It was easier for her to get up in and out. So sometimes it's very simple things that you can do. I'm going to skip over the video in the interest of time. It is on our website if anyone wanted to go see it. Here's one of, we don't do this all the time, but if they truly are not able to get in and out of their tub, because we have had stories of older adults that literally have spent hours, and I'm talking 5 to 6 hours in their tub, refilling their tub because they can't get out of their tub. And so we do have the ability to do what I call a tub to shower conversion. And here's an example of that. And some comments from how we improve activities of daily living. If you've ever had any experience with getting somebody into a nursing home, it's based on either direct activities of daily living or indirect activities of daily living of whether or not they qualify. And all of our work is focused on trying to improve the adult's ability to do activities of daily living. I've already shown that. Here's a ramp. We find that a very large percentage of folks say it prevents them, not just the ramps, but these other things, prevents falls. And if you've talked with any medical professional, if an older adult has a fall and goes to the hospital, at minimum, you're looking $15,000 to $20,000 for that visit. So we're able to really help prevent falls and also prevent further healthcare complications. Getting in and out of their homes, bathrooms, and a huge improvement in their quality of life and depression. These statistics, by the way, were measured by the National Center for Healthy Housing. And there are folks out there, older adults, that feel like prisoners in their own home. That's a quote from one homeowner that quoted to me that a number of years ago. And if you're not able to get in and out of your house on a regular basis, it can cause this feeling of being entrapped in your own home and can really cause depression. And so a lot of them talk about being much more part of the community when they're able to do this. So I'm going to stop here. Just because I think my 20 minutes is up, but would be more than happy to take any questions either now or at the end, whichever you feel is appropriate.
I do have a question for you now. So if someone does have their floor caving in or any kind of structural issues, what does the application process look like for your organization?
Sure, great. So think of it as kind of 3 steps. Number 1 is a homeowner calls into our office and would need to give the details not only of what they need to have repaired, but also demographic information such as their age and showing that they own the home and things like income. So I call it a triage, a quick phone screen. And if it seems like it's a repair that would qualify for our program, And if and they would qualify as well with their demographic information. We request documentation of that, and then it goes to the application process, which would be step 2 once we get the documents in-house. An application is taken, and then we send our home repair manager out to do an assessment with that. And we have the ability to escalate urgent repairs. If somebody calls in and there's water pouring in their house, or their water heater bursts, or they're coming home from the hospital and they need a ramp, or they have no heat in their home, they're using their stove or something, we have the way to escalate things, but that's kind of a quick overview of the steps.
Okay, and what is that typical timeline? Say it's a basic repair. What is how long do they usually have to wait to get services?
Yeah, if it's an urgent repair, we can escalate it. And when I say urgent, I really mean like an emergency repair. As quick as they can get the documentation. We have a lot of different funding sources, and so there's requirements that. So part of it is the homeowner getting the information into us quickly, but we can respond within, for a really, really urgent emergency situation, we can respond within a week or 2. But the typical repair process where it's not an urgent emergency situation is probably 60 days to 90 days before we get through the process that we could actually begin the repairs. For that, we have different steps in that process.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions? You can put them in the chat and we can revisit them. I'm going to pass it over now to Melissa at the city.
I don't know if, hi, this is Sonia Randolph. I'm actually going to start off first before Melissa goes. And I'm going to share my screen. And I don't know if Melissa, is she on? I didn't see, I know she was on at one point. I think she's back. Yes, she's back. Okay. So I am Sonia Randolph, and I am City of Greensboro's Housing Rehab Administrator. And my part of the presentation is just going to be really quick. I only have one slide to share with you all. And can everybody see that slide? Okay, great. As a housing rehab administrator, we do have basically 2 rehab programs here at the City of Greensboro. We have a general rehab program where we help people who are physically disabled, people in emergency situations, and then other general rehab situations for your house. And then we also have the Lead Safe Housing Program that Melissa Burton is going to speak with you all about afterwards. And so I will say that one of the biggest changes that we have had so far within the past couple of months is that we now have one application for both of our programs that can be found online, or we can mail it out to people. But we do have one application for both our general rehab program and then also for our Lead Safe Housing Program. And from the data collected from that, we are able to tell people, first, we do try to get them into our Lead Safe Housing Program, which is a grant program, and try to offer up some of our other grant funds that we do have available. And then our last one we do is have is our rehab loan, which kind of acts as a means to take up or to once all of the grant funds have been gone or used up, then people can decide if they want to continue on with the rest of the work in their house by using a rehab loan that we have here at the city. So again, it's just one application now that can be found online or can be mailed to a household. And so we do use a combination of federal funds, bond funds, and other sources, very similar to what Jean just said. And again, that includes emergency repair, accessibility modifications, and also if a person or a unit or property has been assessed a code violation. For all of our programs, whether it is general rehab or our Lead Safe Housing Program, they are all both based on income and property eligibility. And so by income eligibility, Just like what Jean said earlier, we have a limit of 80% of the area median income for the household income. In terms of property eligibility, it's a little bit different depending on if an applicant is going through the general rehab program or through our lead safe housing program. On the lead safe side, what we're looking at for property eligibility, Melissa will get more into that, but it is verifying the property ownership. On the general rehab side, we do have to go through and do a title search where we're looking at ownership over the past 30 years, just because people in that program might actually go off into and obtain a rehab loan. So we do have to do a preliminary title opinion, but those are the two basic requirements for our general rehab program. And I'm going to turn it over to Melissa now to talk about our lead safe housing program. We can't hear you, Melissa.
How about now?
Yes, great.
Okay, sorry about that. All right. Hey, as you just met, Sonia Randolph, our Housing Rehabilitation Administrator. I also have myself, I am the Lead Safe Housing Program Supervisor. We have new staff on board. Her name is Donna Dean Aguayo. She's the Program Assistant, and we still have James Wolf, our Rehab Specialist. Okay, for the Lead Safe Housing Program, like others have mentioned earlier, it has to be built before 78. A unit located within the city of Greensboro limits. However, we do have an exception for those with children under the age of 6. If they have an elevated blood level, we can do the outside of city limits and do Guilford County. Rental assistance do not require a child occupant at the time of the assistance, and the total household income must not exceed the program limits as discussed earlier. With the grant amounts, you get $30,000 for property with 1 to 3 units, and for multi-units, it's $9,500 per unit. We also have additional grants available to address healthy and safe issues. And the process is first you fill out an application and get approved, and then a certified lead-based paint inspector comes to test the home for lead. They also test the soil and the water as well. The inspector's report will outline recommendations and guidance for work to be performed. And then we use our certified lead abatement contractors to remediate the lead-based paint hazards. And then we monitor the work to make sure the lead safety guidelines are followed, including the cleaning of the lead dust. If in the event that the tenant or homeowner is not able to get to sleeping, bathroom, or cooking areas, we will relocate up to 10 days. And so in the other requirements, of course, you have to complete an application, make sure household income is under that 80%, and make sure that the owner and the contractor are approving of the work write-up. And then you have to go into a 3-year deed restriction. If it's a rental, the landlord must give priority to families with children under the age 6 that will be in the home, and rent under HUD fair market rate based on the amount of bedrooms in the unit, and keep the units up to code. If it's owner occupied, property must remain as the principal place of residence, meaning they can't rent it out to someone for up to 3 years. They can't rent to someone until after the 3 years have passed, I'm sorry. And also keep the property up to code. And this is our contact information. And if anyone has any questions. Let's see if there's anything in the chat.
Thank you, Melissa. I don't know, do you know much about the lead abatement process? So after someone's applied and been approved, kind of how does that work? What exactly does someone do about the lead? How do they address that?
Okay, so yes, like once the application is approved, we have the lead tester come out, check the home, and then they give a report to us. And if the lead is hazardous, meaning if it's peeling or chipping, we are able to remediate those issues. But if it's an intact surface, say like a wall, a standing surface, something that's not going to be impacted by friction, it cannot be touched because it's actually lead safe. So anything that opens and closes, like doors, windows, any friction impact surfaces, those are the ones we can definitely remediate. After that, the report comes back to us to see that if we do, in fact, can do that, we send out our housing rehabilitation specialist, and he goes out and he checks the home, and he does a healthy homes assessment checklist. And then he combines it together, and then that's when they go through the process of bidding out the work. And the contractor that wins the bid is the one who completes the work on the home. And then after the construction is complete, and say if they had to be relocated, the tenant's relocated not before a clearance is achieved. And then that's it. That's the end of the process.
Okay, I also have one more question. Gosh, I just had it, it escaped my mind. I just forgot. I'll ask you at the end though. But thank you. Do you have anything else to add on what your organization does, the city?
Yes, it's a grant and it's currently up and running. So if you know anyone who may have a home with that was built before 1978, please definitely have them reach out to us.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I remembered my question. So do
Oh.
you guys offer rehousing services for people? Like if you have to go in and kind of renovate the home, do you rehouse people?
Oh no, not at this time. We do relocation with our contracted hotel facilities,
Okay.
but no, we don't do rehousing.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to our final speakers, Drew and Doug.
Good afternoon. I'm not going to make this too long. We'll try to get through our presentation kind of fast. My name is Drew Corbett. This is Mr. Doug Laughlin. Let me go ahead and pull our PowerPoint up. Share the screen. All right, as I said before, my name is Andrew Corbett Douglas Laughlin. We work with the Piedmont Triad Community Development Weatherization Assistance Program. Inside this department, we have also the rehab program, the Section 8 program. We covered basically 8 counties for weatherization, 15 counties for the rehab side. And I really do not know off the top of my head how many we do for the Section 8 program. So we're going to go ahead and get to our spiel. The mission of this weatherization assistance program is to improve the energy efficiency, household safety, and education of the public about maintaining energy efficiencies. Families with income below 200% of the federal poverty level or those receiving cash assistance payments, work first, or supplemental security income are eligible for weatherization services. Priority is placed on providing assistance to the elderly, individuals with disabilities, and families with children. The goal of the weatherization assistance program, of course, is to keep our citizens warm in the winter, cool in the summer, and safe all year long. A byproduct of this program is that we are also making the house healthy. Our focus in our residential homes. Of course, we're always looking to keep air out and keep conditioned air in. We just got when it came up, we have a voucher program. It's in 4 counties: Surrey, Stokes, Jackson, and Dade. I do apologize for that. So our main thing is that we're trying to keep the house healthy. We have different tools that we're about to go over how we do that. We do many different tests on homes, which can consist of combustion testing, which consists of blower door testing, duct flasher testing, everything that we can to find out where the house is losing air, where the house is losing energy, and where the house is the least safest at. We also look at our lead-based program, not as extensive as our rehab program does, but we do look at the lead-based as well. Our initial audit. So once we have a client who calls us, says their house is leaky, or their house has roof problems, or their house has any type of issue, we try to take a phone interview and figure out what the best program is that fits it. As of right now, we have one application that works for both of our programs. So we're able to help our clients with any necessary home repairs that are needed. Our inspections take somewhere between 2.5 hours and 3 hours. We begin outside the home. We look at every area of the house, whether it's the crawl space, the attic, closets, living rooms, anywhere inside the house, we will have our eyes on and check. We do a CAS and combustion test, which means we go inside and we make sure that every combustion system that's inside the house is performing at its peak capacity. We're making sure that the draft is good. We're making sure there are no pollutants. We're making sure that everything is working and functioning as it should. Tools. So the tools that we use and we'll be talking more about are the blower door, the duct blaster, and combustion analyzers. We are also in the midst of training people throughout the state on the very things that you see now. We have become an accredited BPI testing center as well. So a blower door is used throughout the entire process from start to finish. Not only do my inspectors use it when they're out in the field, our contractors are required to have it up during the work that we do on the homes. That's why we're making sure that we are using our dollars cost effectively, making sure that we are dropping the CFMs to ensure we're doing the best work we can for the money that we get from the states and from our other providers. First readings are baseline readings of which goals for the home are set. When we go into the house to begin with, we do a blower door, whatever numbers we get an idea of how much we are willing to spend to make the house as tight as possible where it's still healthy inside the house. It locates our air leaks in the pressure boundary, which keeps us from, it helps us to find where the majority of our concerns are, whether we have bad air coming in from the attic or from the crawl space. When we test all that, that kind of makes us aware of where we need to spend most of our time inside the home. Our main concern is to make the house healthier for the clients to live in while we're reducing energy burdens.
We also use duct blasters to test the actual ducts of the home. Duct leakage that is outside of the building envelope creates an energy drain. Duct blaster testing is implemented on homes that have low blower door numbers, as well as low pressure results for pressure pan testing to make sure measures are as efficient as possible. Of course, before we do any of these tests on these ducts, we always have to do a visual inspection on these ducts to make sure there's no asbestos tape in the ducts. A lot of times we come across that. We also want to make sure there's no loose debris that's going to be going around and actually getting into the ducts and messing with the air quality. Duct tightness test is not required in the air handler, and all ducts are located within a conditioned space. Duct blasters testing is used hand in hand with blower door testing. So we'll run a blower door, take pressure pans, and then we also run a duct blaster test just specifically on the ducts, so we know exactly what the ducts are doing by themselves, almost like they're not even in the house. That way we can actually test that whole system to see what it's going to do and the things that we do, how it's going to change it, and the way it's going to change the way the house reacts. And then we also use a combustion analyzer on anything that burns fuel. This tool is used to make sure all combustion appliances comply with safety standards. We also test the efficiency of each appliance, and we wear personal CO detectors while we're doing these tests. It's very important to have the combustion analyzer so we can make sure that the appliance is burning properly. The last thing we want to do, we also test for draft And then that's going to make sure that there's no spillage of CO in the house. We get these homes into what we call worst case. A lot of times, if you go out onto a house during a winter day, it's cold outside, a gas hot water heater will vent with no problem. But then on warm summer days, there's a less temperature difference inside, and it's actually a lot harder for it to draft. So what we're actually trying to do is put this house in a position where if this thing is ever going to fail, we see it right then, because we want to make sure it stays safe even when we're gone, because we are going to be tightening the houses up. So we want to make sure we can control exactly what that draft is doing. The last thing you want to do is fill up a home with CO or ruin somebody's house.
To add to that, we also require that all of our contractors and anyone who does work for our agency will also be testing the house out every day that they work on it. One of the byproducts of tightening down a house means that we are changing the CAS, which is the worst thing that you could possibly do to a house, and it could cause backdraft or spillage, which means CO will start coming into a house. So we maintain the blower door and the worst case scenario at all times while we're at the house working it until we are completely finished. We do a final inspection just to make sure that the house stays safe and stays healthy all at the same time. Oh.
So we use what we like to call blower door guided air sealing. In all the energy efficient structures, pressure and thermal boundaries are of utmost importance. This is accomplished by sealing top plates, junction boxes, chases, and plumbing penetrations in the attic and crawl space. And so anytime a house is built, there's pretty much going to be some gaps up top, on top of wall plates, stuff like that. And if you have any kind of interstitial leakage, you could actually be pulling that attic or crawl space air into the home, and then that's what you're breathing. So it's really important to use the blower door to find all these holes. That way you know you have them all, and then we can also test afterwards to see that we actually did seal it up. Using the blower door, we can actually determine how separate the house is from the attic or the crawl space. And so our goal is to make it where the attic and the crawl space is completely separate from the house, to where there's no air interchanging in between the two. And then with insulation, weatherization guidelines recognize efficient insulation levels in attic spaces at R38 and crawl spaces at R19. We match existing insulation. So if they have cellulose up top, we're going to put cellulose up top with it, just so we can continue that R value. We'll just bring the R value up instead of starting from scratch. And also vapor barriers. The moisture retardant prolongs lifespan of insulation measures, and it covers exposed ground under the home with 6 mil plastic. So this plastic we take and we cover completely the crawl space up underneath. And so that's also going to keep moisture from the ground from wicking up into the home and causing mold or mildew or anything like that, especially in crawl spaces. And so, like, if any of y'all have ever been, like, went out to a home and went into the crawl space and you just, like, they had that picture up there earlier, you could see that dude making that face. That's that smell. That's what we're trying to cut down on just in the crawl space. And then that's also going to make all the measures that we install in the crawl space last longer and be more efficient. If you look at the top left picture, you can actually see where we've actually went around and air sealed some of the top plates. You can see where those two lines are coming across together. So this is actually spots where air could be leaking from inside the home in the walls up to the attic, or down from the attic into the home, causing stack effect. And that's the last thing we want, is for these to be mingling together. We also build attic boxes around pull down accesses. You can see on the bottom left, it actually has a lid on top. And so not only is it going to be saving money because it's not allowing heat to just go right up out that access into the attic, it's also going to be sealing it and making it safer for the client, so that there's no leakage of that air coming down. On the top right picture there, you actually see an insulation dam. Some people like to store stuff up in their attics, and this one right here is actually on the other side. The picture's not up there. It's actually leading to an air conditioning unit. So, of course, if we have any kind of appliances or anything up top in the attic, we want to make sure you're able to get to it without ruining the insulation. So that's some of the stuff that we do. And then that bottom right picture, if you look towards the back in that picture, you can see where they were actually air sealing wall plates, and they were getting all the electrical lines going in just to completely separate that attic from the rest of the house. Keep the bottom of the slide.
Can't see the bottom of the slide. Why is that? Okay. We were just told we couldn't see the bottom of the slide, but it is actually up on our screen, so I'm not sure why that is. So what, I'm guessing you can't see the attic box, is that correct?
It looks good now. It was for a little
Okay.
bit cut off.
Okay, all right, I do apologize. Let's go to the next slide.
All right, so this implementation, if you look on the left there, that's actually a 90+ unit. This is a combustion unit, but it is sealed combustion. So this is the safest thing that we can put in that's actually burning any kind of gas. If you look, the exhaust is actually made out of PVC pipe because it is a 90+ unit. It's actually pulling enough heat out of the combustion that the flue doesn't actually need to be metal. So any chance we get, we like to put these in. They are a little bit more expensive, but they last longer. They're a lot safer for people, and we just really like them a lot. And if you look at the right picture, that's just a house that's after it's been 6 mil. As you can tell, the plastic goes all the way across, and that's just to make sure that ground moisture is not going up and rotting out or pulling out that insulation. And then that bottom right picture is what we use in conjunction with what we call a smart switch. This is a fan that we'll put in the house. We use it as a whole house fan. So after the house is done and we have all the blower door numbers stating the air, the CFM that goes through the house, we actually have what we call an ashtray. And this lets us know how much circulation the house needs, fresh air being pulled into the home. And so we can actually set this fan on a timer, and it makes sure that there's enough fresh air coming in the home, that way that there's no mold, mildew, or any kind of bad smells. And so we really like, this is a Panasonic Whisper fan. If any of y'all ended up having to do whole house ventilation, I would suggest this one. Most of the time the clients can't even hear it come on. The last thing you want is a client in the middle of the night waking up thinking somebody's broken into their home or something is in their bathroom or their kitchen. And so we put these quiet ones in, especially because they're going to be cutting on a few minutes every hour. And so each home is different. It really depends on how tight we get the home and how much air changes it needs. But we put a fan in every home just to make sure that we can control the air quality of the home and not just leave it up to chance.
To add to that, with the vapor barriers that you see in the picture, we do not do enclosed crawl spaces and weatherization. The standards for our state guidelines are that we overlap 12 inches and we go up 6 inches on the exterior walls. So we do not, although we call it a vapor barrier, it is not a vapor retarder or enclosed crawl space. So moisture can still get in there, but it takes, I would say, 80% of that out, which in return makes sure that the insulation doesn't fall down by absorbing too much moisture into the fiberglass.
We also do HVAC repair and replacement. We focus on the safety over the efficiency due to the funding and needs of our client pool. We replace like for like as far as fuel type, 15 SEER for heat pumps and 90+ for gas system. The mechanical ventilation helps with moisture levels in the home and air intake. 80 CFM or 1 zone are installed with smart switch to regulate fresh air. And refrigerators require passing a savings investment ratio above 1. We actually have there's actually a formula for that. So you actually have to figure out how many kilowatts the refrigerator is using per year. And then you do a savings ratio to make sure that it pays back out within the lifespan of the appliance. So the last thing you would want to do is buy a refrigerator that's going to take 40 years to pay off, but it's only supposed to last 10 years. And so that wouldn't make any sense. So everything we do has to have a SIR, which is a savings investment ratio of above 1. That's just to make sure that the money we're spending is doing the client the most good that it can. And so that helps the client, and it helps us let us know the best things to do on the home. And then some energy saving simple solutions. Change the system filters regularly. Most people tell you change them once a month. In weatherization, we say if you can see dirt on it, it's got too much on it. And we would suggest changing it out. Also, people have to remember that high traffic areas, if your return's in a high traffic area, it's going to get dirtier faster. If you have animals in your home, with the dandruff and any kind of hair, stuff like that, it's going to get caught in that filter faster. So if you got a filter in the middle of a hallway where a dog sleeps, you might want to check it multiple times that month just to make sure that it's good and clear. We also suggest a closed fireplace damper when it's not used. They also sell what they call, some of the old ones don't have real dampers in it, or maybe they've rusted out. So we suggest find what we call a chimney plug. It's a thing you put into the chimney, it fills up with air and it seals it completely off. Weather strip exterior doors, insulated or solid doors are the best. So just weather strip and just keep that airflow from just going in and out that door. You'd be surprised how much you can make it out. Insulate and weather strip the attic access, and that's just to make sure that that attic access isn't a void in insulation, or it's not going to allow air to pass through it. And so we don't want any weak spots in the ceiling.
To add to the weather strip on the exterior doors for personal use, if you have parents, elderly uncles, most of the time you go there, they've been painted over several times. If you see that you have exterior door weather strip kits or anything that has paint on it, they need to be replaced. It reduces the effectiveness of it reduces the way it works dramatically. So if you see that, and you see it a lot in our elderly homes, people who go outside, repaint the doors, repaint the door jambs, they don't really try to miss it. So it's usually covered in paint, which makes it very hard, very brittle, and it's not really doing the job that it's meant to do. So anytime you see that, make sure you replace it. The airtight refrigerator gasket, if it holds a dollar bill, it's still working pretty decently. Just make sure that you keep an eye on it. When the seal does start to get loose, that's when you get mold and mildew. And I'm just turning this back over to the Doug, but one thing I wanted to add to that, something that people really don't think about, people who live on their own. If you do not have a lot of food or a lot of frozen items in your refrigerator or freezer, make sure you put either gallon milk jugs full of water or 2-liter bottles with water in it, put it inside your refrigerator, put it in your freezer. What you're doing is you're freezing these bottles inside the freezer, which in return is keeping the freezer cold, so it keeps the refrigerator from cycling quite as much. The same process goes with the actual refrigerator inside. The more cold things you have in the refrigerator, the colder the refrigerator stays, so it won't kick on and off quite as much. Go ahead, Doug.
All right. We also suggest to fix leaky faucets and pipes. I can't tell you how many times I go out to houses to the energy auditor and they have a slow leak on their kitchen sink, just coming out. It's just going in the drain. It's not hurting anything. Is the way they look at it, but it's actually causing a big problem with their hot water heater. It's going to be using a lot more energy trying to keep water warm because it's constantly having to put water back in there. And not to mention, if it's leaking under the house or anywhere else, it could be actually causing problems to the home, mold. There's just wood rot. There's so much bad stuff that can happen when you allow leaks to stay. So just of course fix any leaky faucets and pipes. We also suggest that you eliminate drafts by caulking or foaming plumbing penetrations. And so if there's a hole that goes into an attic or into a crawl space, it might seem like a really little hole and really insignificant, but if you go through your home and add all of those little bitty pipe holes, all the holes from wires going through, your phone line going through, you add all those holes together, next thing you know, you have a huge hole where actual air is going through. So we always suggest to seal those up. That's also going to make the home more safe, where you're not breathing air that's coming from the attic or the crawl space. Use cold water cycles when washing clothes and clean your lint filter between loads. It's a really big one to clean that lint filter. We come across a lot of dryers. I have to dry my clothes 4 times before they dry. That is because the lint filter or the pipe on the back is messed up. So when you don't clean that lint filter, you're also filling that dryers where it's actually going to terminate to the outside. You're actually filling it up with lint and damaging it too. So every time you turn on your dryer, that lint filter needs to be changed. Not once a week, it needs to be every time you use it. And that's going to make it to where your dryer works more efficiently. It's going to keep it where you don't have to turn it on as many times. And also, it's not going to cause fires. You see a lot of home fires started by dryers, and that's exactly why. It's because people aren't cleaning out their lint filters. So I can't talk about that enough, how important that is for people to do. And to make sure you're telling your clients this is a very important thing to do, because it's going to make their home safer and it's going to save them money. We also suggest, this is one nobody's going to like, we suggest to set your thermostat at 78 or higher in the summer or 68 or lower in the winter. I know it sounds hot. Most people, my wife kills me about this. She hates it. 78 degrees feels hot to people when they come in, but I will let you know, 90% of the time, The 78 degrees is actually cool enough. It's the humidity in the home that's bothering you. So if you turn it on 78 to 76 and it still just feels really hot in there, a dehumidifier would do wonders for you. And then in the winter time, when you have it set on 68, everybody says that feels so cold, that feels so cold, but it's actually pretty warm compared to outside. And I would suggest the opposite in the wintertime, a controlled humidifier, not some kind of crazy humidifier where you're just pumping so much humidity in your home it makes your walls sweat, but a controlled one to add a little humidity to it in the wintertime will actually increase the comfort level. And so if you can increase the comfort level, then you don't have to keep switching that thing back and forth. And a big one that everybody needs to tell their kids, stop touching the thermostat. Don't be turning it up and down, because turning it up and down is going to ruin your unit. The air that's going to come out of that unit is only going to be 1 degree. It's the same degrees no matter what if you turn it high or low. So find a comfortable setting and leave it there. And then going along with that is, in the winter time, if you find yourself having to sit in your underwear because it's hot in your home, turn the thermostat down. Same thing in the summertime. If you find yourselves under covers on the couch, turn the AC off and don't use covers. So we want people to be comfortable, but also be aware how much that actually changes your power bill and the way your house works. And so some other stuff that we got is caulk and seal leaky windows. Of course, that's a big deal. Most of the time when I go out to a house to do an energy audit, the first thing I get is my windows are leaking. My windows are causing my power bill. Probably about 80% of the time, that's actually not the case. But if you do notice real leaky windows around the sides, especially if you live in an older home that has the weighted windows, we suggest doing some caulk. You could actually reglaze windows panes, which would help a lot. And then foam or caulk any holes penetrating to the crawl space, attic, or outside the conditioned envelope. So not only on the attic and the crawl space we're worried about, we also want to make sure that there's not holes in the outside walls where air could be just, especially when your house becomes under pressure when you turn on your unit, we don't want all that air to be pushed back outside. And so those are just a few things that we can do. And of course, if anybody had any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer.
This is some of the things that we go to with our clients and some of the things that we do when we're out in the field and we're talking. It gives people who may not qualify for our program a way to try to help save money on their home. So that was the main reason for showing this slide today. Follow-up, check to ensure that all safety measures and weatherization measures are completed correctly. So we are all QCI certified. We're BPI, EA, QCI. We've got more certifications than we care to try to continue to talk about, but after everything's done, after our contractors have went out and completed all the measures that we asked them to complete, we go out and take a look at everything and we make sure that everything is perfectly done. We retest the house, we get the new baselines, we get the new cast test done, and we're pretty much just making sure everything is done to the T. When we're done, we're also inspected by the state. The state picks random houses to make sure that we're doing our jobs correctly. And we also try to make sure that all of our appliances that we install are Energy Star rated. At this time, we're only doing refrigerators. We did have some Duke dollars that we were doing appliances with, but that program is no longer funded as of right now. We're hoping to get it back soon. And that really is all we have for you today. Is there any questions that anyone has?
I do want to say that the slide with the simple solutions, I think that was great because that's a lot of information I don't think even I am not aware of. And it's the fact that it's simple things you can do around the home to help with that. Do you mind sharing these slides with me and I can get those to people afterwards?
Not a problem. I'll make sure I send it to you today. Like I said, anytime anybody has any questions about anything, let us know. We're also, for anybody who has contractors that need to redo their BPIs, we're certified now, so you do not have to send your contractors to a different state to get their certifications or their CEUs. So that is one big step that Piedmont Triad Regional Council has taken to try to help all areas in the state who are doing energy certifications, is that we're trying to alleviate from having to travel so far and waste our valuable dollars on training outside the state. Our rehab program, like I said, we're all in the middle of the Piedmont. So our rehab covers Guilford County as well. Our weatherization covers everywhere from Person County all the way up to Forsyth, down to Randolph, all the way up to, well, we cover pretty much central Piedmont. So anything that we can do to help, let us know. Anybody have any questions, let us know. We look forward to working with everybody. And I have referred so many people to most of the programs that talked before me that I can't even count.
Thank you. I do have one question for you. What are one of the most reoccurring issues that you guys come across when doing home repair?
Well, so some of the most reoccurring problems we have is heat loss. A lot of our clients, like they had said before, we have several who heat their homes with their gas ranges or their stoves. So some of the stuff that I worry about is the health and safety aspects of it. Our other recurring problems is we just can't get to our clients fast enough. I wish we could. Unfortunately, we do have a wait list. So time to time, it takes us sometimes a year to get some of our clients. A lot of the recurring problems other than that are roof leaks. Luckily, we have several different funding sources. So urgent repair dollars, Blue Cross Blue Shield dollars, some Duke dollars that we're able to do things outside the scope of weatherization that we are able to rectify the situation so we can get to work on it. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yes, yes. Okay. And there's a question in the chat, and I'm going to address this to all the speakers. Dan says, basically he's saying, how are we getting educational information about these resources to those low wealth and non-English speaking neighborhoods? If anyone can speak on that, how are you guys kind of doing that outreach to get it out there?
If I may jump in here real quick. Again, Michael Blair, I'm the CD director that the weatherization program's under. We've done a lot of neighborhood door-to-door, even during COVID, but I mean, there was a period of time where we did not do this, but we've done door-to-door door hangers with that program, information on it. We have tried to work with our partners to share information on who's been applying to them, but sometimes there are issues with privacy and things like that. We've tried social media buys, essentially. We have also, and let me back this up a little bit. We always need more people to apply. So if you are dealing with a low income or low wealth community or an immigrant community or something like that, let us know. We'll either go to that community or give you the information to take to that community. So it's really a matter of, we rely a lot on partners, but we do a lot on our own as well.
I also
want to do that. I'm sorry, to add to that, we also, those flyers, they're bilingual flyers. So we try to make sure that we reach every culture that we serve. So we try to send out bilingual flyers with everything we put out as well. That's kind of how the best way this past year that we've been able to reach anybody is door to door with bilingual flyers and actually just walking up and talking to people. Doug, as y'all tell, can talk a lot.
I want to speak to that as well. So I am the program coordinator of the Health Impact Team. And that's part of the work I do is the community outreach, connecting people in these neighborhoods and communities and letting them know there are these resources out there, as well as helping them apply and just kind of educating them on basically all these organizations and resources that they do have. So are there any more questions before we wrap up? Anybody would like to add anything to the discussion? All right. So I do want to reiterate, all these programs are, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, are little to no cost, and they're geared towards people of low income families or neighborhoods and communities. You can check these websites there in the chat for all these organizations. This recording will be going up on the website Monday, as well as the links, resources, and information for all these organizations. And I do want to thank all the panelists and the audience as well for coming out, taking time out of your Friday. Again, I will invite you all to our next Hangout in August on the 6th. as well as our community work day. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna leave it open for a little bit if you need to collect the link from the chat before I close it. All right.